2. Continue
But,
number 2.
Even, like, with the grandmother who seemed, like, the most, like, invested in sign and learning to communicate with her own son and stuff like that, she kind of, like, used SimCom, which isn't even, like, it isn't even ASL, so it wasn't like she even completely, like, recognized, like, ASL and, like, the value of, like, their views and stuff like that as not being disabled.
So opinionated
Oh my God.
in your face.
They seem super Italian
really,
to me.
Yes, definitely. What really upset me when, like, I couldn't believe that they said this was when they decided to not implant their child, Heather. They're like, oh, that's abuse.
Oh, they said it was abuse so many times.
Floored me.
Yeah.
I could not believe that they said that. I was just sitting there like, you have no, holy crap, what? You have no idea. It's just, they're very opinionated. And
the dynamics were definitely interesting, and there was definitely always, like, us against them. It never seemed cohesive at all.
I thought it seemed sad, too, because is it Nita who was...
That's the deaf
wife. Yeah. It seems like her family had, like, completely, like, abandoned her. Like, there was such, like, deep, like, disconnect and, like, her
Did we even see her
I don't
family? No, right?
No,
It was
they
just
talked
like,
about her once when she was talking about when the grandmother was like, you don't even know how to, like, read a recipe on your own. And she was like, well, my mom couldn't even, like, teach me how to do that.
Yeah. There was never any compromise.
It's a lot of hurt.
No.
There's a lot of really, like, deep-running hurt and, like, deep-running emotions and feelings.
Well, and never even, like, an acknowledgement that, like, I understand that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, it was always like, you're stupid. That's wrong.
Yeah. Mikey's right.
You're abusing your kids. And I understand why you would be upset that I'm saying that, but you're abusing your kids.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to listen to me after I say something like that.
And so I was talking about how you personally identify with Heather's parents, and I, like, felt bad even comparing any situation in my life to that, because I haven't had anything that's, like, been a decision that I've made that my family has disagreed with so much. But the only thing that I can think is that, like, I've, like, tried to, like, travel, and I want to travel by myself, and my parents are, like, so against it. And I know that's, like, nowhere in comparison, but that's the only thing I can bring from my experience.
Yeah. I felt like, I mean, like, something we learned so much in deaf culture, in my deaf culture class, is that, like, you really don't understand what it's like to be a deaf person, and that's so big to them is their identity that, like, you don't share this experience, so you can, like, try to sympathize all you want, but you can't actually empathize with, like, what it is to be, like, capital D deaf. And so I think that's...
I appreciated the fact that when she was talking about, oh, I want a cochlear implant at age 5, I want it because I want to be able to talk and stuff. At first they seemed very closed-minded about it, but then they started doing research and stuff, and I kind of appreciated that because they seemed to be more willing to hear and learn and try to, like, accept why she was doing it, as opposed to the hearing grandparents and stuff who are like, no, this is completely wrong and stuff. And so I felt like
I was so shocked that there was, like, such tension, because it's not like the deaf parents were just like, no, not going to talk about it at all.
Well,
like,
and even the
they
mom
tried
so
so hard.
They were so much more open than anyone else
to look
was
at different
in the
options. They
family.
looked at different schools and things like that. And so that I really appreciated. And
like, they're good parents.
And,
they, like, really tried.
Yeah. And then with, like, sympathizing with baby Peter's parents, all I could think of is I've seen my parents sacrifice a lot for me, and that's really just what I saw, is that they were sacrificing to do what was best, or what they saw was best for their child. So
yeah, I think with, like, his parents and stuff like that, I think the hard thing for them was that they had firsthand account seeing, like, the struggles that, like, their own families had gone through, like, her parents and, like, his brother and stuff like that. And I think they were just so, like, concerned and, like, worried for their children. They want, like, you generally want the best for your kids, and so I think they just, like, I think they were trying their best.
A little surprised at how anti-deaf community they seemed.
Yes.
Especially the mom, I can't remember her name.
But the twins.
Yeah.
Both her parents were deaf.
And she signed, like, beautifully. She was really fluent.
And she just seems so, like, against the deaf world and stuff, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, because she grew up in it. My impression of the professionals was kind of weird, because they literally only showed, like, the success cases. Like, and, like, that one little 4-year-old they kept showing over and over again. It's like, not every kid with a cochlear implant's gonna be like
That's
that.
like A.G. Bell Foundation, like, with all their videos and stuff like that, it's so biased.
Yeah, and it's like...
Well, and when they would interview them, I don't know, it was kind of removed and not personal, and didn't, it didn't really seem like they took an investment in the family. It was kind of weird, because you never really heard from them.
Yeah.
And then when you did, it was success stories and like facts and like I don't know.
It was very like pro cochlear implant. There wasn't a lot of like talking about other options, but I think it's also because the family already knew like the whole backstory about like deaf culture and stuff.
Well, and there was no like total communication. Like anywhere that it was either like you're deaf and you're gonna sign, or like you have a cochlear implant and you're gonna speak. Like there was no sign language. Like they were all oral, which I thought was odd.
I thought that's like very representative.
Of the time. It was maybe in the 90s.
Yeah,
it came in 2000. I'm pretty sure.
It's still a long time.
I know.
Yeah. I think it says 2002. So But like their views were like so dichotomistic.
Yes,
it was like it's one way or the other, and the family was like an exact representation of that. It's just kind of sad because there's so much that can come from.
What insight did this video give you into the oral and manual communication methodologies?
Kind of just what we talked about. My big thing was that it was like one or the other.
Yeah.
There was never any talk that like, oh, she can sign and still learn, or like even these babies that are implanted young should sign, but then they can speak. It was all like, you have to speak or you're going to sign.
Well,
one or the other.
In the video they talked about, well, professionals are saying that if they get a cochlear implant that they should not sign, and how detrimental it is. And so it's kind of interesting to see kind of where how it's shifting now, to whether it's more total communication.
I mean, like language itself does not like impede language. Like it doesn't stop like language acquisition does not stop language acquisition. So it doesn't really like make sense.
Maybe it's because of like deaf studies and ASL and everything. But like the more I learn about this, the more I'm like, I am not for the whole oral.
Well, and that's like what shocked me is because like what you're just saying, like it was never talked about that the child needed language. It was always like they need to speak.
They need spoken language.
Exactly.
They didn't like accept that like ASL is an actual language with like its own grammatical structure and it's like very valid and they didn't respect that.
Like the parents of the deaf people, like grown-ups didn't like accept it. It was weird.
They like would like say they did, but they didn't actually like accept that in their heart.
Because the dad didn't even know sign language. So
he's
What insight did the film give you into the deaf culture and very surprising? One of my favorite parts was when they were at the picnic.
Oh, that's what I had too.
The deaf community just went
they
ham.
were like robots. They're like,
and
robots.
This lady started doing this, and they were just like, cochlear implants are the worst. And one thing that like I noticed as I was watching this and taking all of the classes that I've taken and everything was even the conversations between like the parents and the children, the two mothers or whatever, because they were dealing with deaf individuals, they were so blunt, and I'm sitting here thinking like, man, like that is one thing that still surprises me. But just like every conversation was just like really direct, and it's like, I know I'm gonna hurt your feelings, and that sucks, but this is how I feel about it, and that was kind of, it's still surprising, but the picnic was definitely my favorite.
That's what I had
It was like the ultimate insight of what the deaf community thinks.
Well, and the deaf people were so harsh on the hearing girl. Like, I feel like it's one thing to be like that with another deaf person, but this girl was hearing and like always had been, and so I kind of felt bad for her in that situation, but
I think it might have been too because like she was kind of like accepted into the deaf community because she had been raised and like had like been so integrated into it that they felt kind of like betrayed because they were like, this is the one who like can understand where we're coming from. And I felt too like through the whole thing, I just feel like there's like so much deep rooted just hurt like on both sides, and people would just like take their opinions like so deeply to heart, and they like genuinely want like good for other people, and it's just there's just so much hurt that I don't think people can see past that.
What kind of emotional response did you have? I was so frustrated and irritated when I was watching it the whole time. Just like the language that was used and the way that they were speaking to the deaf people, and
it seemed really degrading.
It was so hostile the entire time. Like there was never a moment of like we're family.
It made me feel honestly like I was sitting at a family reunion on my dad's side of the family. There was always like a huge argument, and so I'm just sitting there like.
Just watching.
Oh, goodness. It's just like unease and like, it makes you feel anxious and you're just like
uncomfortable.
It was not
makes me sad too.
Necessarily
an
enjoyable experience.
So this talks about making deafness extinct. Do you think this is a real danger in the future?
I don't think so.
I don't per se. But I feel like some of the identity may be lost a little bit. I kind of like the fact that Heather was later because it allowed her to establish a deaf identity first, and then it allowed her to kind of come into the hearing world and stuff. And so I don't think that it's going to go extinct because there is a history behind it, and there is all this advocacy for cochlear versus non, and total communication stuff. But I do think that maybe a little bit of the identity will be lost, and like some of the pride, maybe if a bunch of infants are implanted and the deaf world kind of loses out a little bit on the generation, maybe some of that like pride will be lost.
I think there'll always be like a need for it,
Right.
and I think it'll always exist. Like as long as you have deaf individuals, you're always going to have deaf culture. And I think too, sorry,
No, go ahead.
but like with like the grandmother, like talking about opportunities and like providing opportunity. Like I liked that she was like wanted opportunities for the kids, and I'm like, yeah, they should have as many opportunities as they possibly can have. But I think like in providing those opportunities, deaf culture is like a big part of that, and so I don't think it can ever be removed.
The son worked on Wall Street. It's, it's not like he was.
Instead of having like pride and like,
he wasn't an
respect
invalid. Like he obviously was very successful, and so that was kind of frustrating. That speech doesn't mean success.
No. Well, and I think there might maybe be like a decrease of like big D deaf people, but since cochlear implants they don't cure like deafness, I think that manual communication and sign language will just persist because there will always be a need for it.
And maybe deaf culture won't go away, but it'll change.
Right. But every culture
like
does.
A shift.
I think too they feel like deaf culture, like and related to deaf individuals, like they feel such like a deep connection to it because they feel accepted there. They don't feel accepted or like they fit in other places. And so I think when you have like some like that deep of like an emotional rooted attachment, then it's not going to go.
I'm interested to see like the pendular, because now it's going to be like it's cochlear implants, but I'm interested to see as we go into this field as if it'll shift more towards like
where there's like more acceptance in the world of people being different.
And I'm like interested to see if there's maybe like a pendular swing back and forth as the years go by.
So I think some of the most important factors to Heather's parents were opportunity and kind of just better understanding the implant itself, but also their family's opinions, because they were so strong-willed and were like, well, like even in the 6 years later one, the dad said, if you're going to implant your child and I will do everything for you, I'll help you. Don't. Yeah, he's like, I'm
like
pretty much like we're done,
Yeah.
I think they already felt pretty isolated, like when they went to Maryland. Especially,
so
they talked about the mom like having like a mental breakdown and stuff. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't use that against like your own family.
No.
You should be like supportive, like whatever decision is being made. And I felt like they were almost kind of like, yeah, you finally chose like the right side. You chose my side.
I wonder if there was more support to not implant, how it would have changed, and like because then they were talking about, oh well, all of the cousins and there's 5 of us and the mom has a cochlear. If there was more support for being non-cochlear, would that have changed at all?
Yeah. Well, and like looking at their family, I do think it was probably the right decision for Heather and for their family, since they have so many deaf and cochlear implanted people, because they're constantly like going back and forth between worlds. So it'll be easier on the kids.
I still feel like they compromised though.
No,
did you get that feeling? When they implanted Heather and like everybody else, their other 2 sons, they got implanted. I kind of felt like they did compromise, and they were kind of like settling.
The parents were kind of snooty about it. Not the deaf parents, but like the grandparents. They were like,
we knew
it
we
was
were
a miracle.
Yeah. Like Heather, I felt like it was the right choice for her because she genuinely she knew like she wanted a cochlear implant. But like having everyone get cochlear implants, and then like the way they responded to it, kind of like condescending almost. And like I didn't like the way the grandmother would kind of like I don't think passive aggressive is the right word, but she just kind of like praise and like nudge Heather in the direction of, oh, you want to like, you should speak, like practicing like stuff like that, even at the beginning, like practicing reading out loud and stuff.
Well, and then the grandmother stopped signing. It was like, why would you stop doing that? That's how you communicated with her till she was 9.
Get a cochlear implant, So I don't know. That was frustrating when I can't say that I am against what they did, but I also felt like they settled and they compromised in a way that they maybe shouldn't have, just to please the parents and the family, because they felt so isolated.
So for number 11, I was like still. What caught me so off guard was in the second film was that they used the word disabled so many times, and it was never said in the first one, but in the second one even like Heather referred to it as a disability, and it's like that just shows that like she had kind of put some of her deafness aside and was like, oh, it is a disability, because that's not the deaf culture whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it shows that, like, that some of the parents' fears were completely valid, because it did happen, and even the grandparents still didn't see that, and I was just sad.
I can't even remember what all the questions were. The insight.
It's just like if your opinion changed or anything like that.
Now, one of the saddest parts, which this was in the first one, not the second one, but when the deaf grandparents, when the grandma was like, I don't want him to be implanted because what if he makes fun of me and he like thinks less of me and
so
stuff.
sad.
And like with, you know, the second one, it definitely kind of gave a feeling of like if you were deaf, you were a little bit inferior if you didn't have a cochlear implant.
Because you have this opportunity, and if you don't take advantage of it, you're not making a good choice.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and then even in the 6 years later, it was so sad at the end when they were all out to eat, and like the grandparents were talking to Heather while the other deaf people were there, and it's like that's knowing deaf culture. That's so rude. Like they knew sign language, and they should have been signing or at least sim-comming. And it was just
and
the dad was at the other table.
About dad.
Like it was like a joke. Yeah. They didn't even include him in it.
No, it was just sad.
Other thoughts and comments. I was very curious as to why Peter's family did not participate in the second video.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, when they're like, oh, they chose not to participate, it made me wonder, and kind of in a smug way, which maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was like, I wonder if the cochlear implant didn't turn out. They said he was doing well, but maybe it didn't turn out as good as they thought, and maybe they regretted it, but they didn't want to come out and say it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of the way I thought about it, and I was curious.
I feel like, too, like, the family wasn't, like, happy together like they wanted to portray it was, like, with, like, the big family dinner and stuff like that, because obviously there's still tension, and people aren't communicating with each other in, like, a literal sense, like...
Different languages.
Yeah, like, different languages at the same table, and so I think, too, like, I don't know if everything's as like healed as it they tried to make it look.
It brought the family together in a very like pieced up kind of way.
Definitely. I think it really just showed that like cochlear implants are really a case by case basis. It's not like a fix all for everyone. It really like I think it did really work for their family since they had them all implanted. So it was nice for them, but like I just felt so bad that this deaf family was being forced to like implant their child that was deaf, and it's like they related to each other. It made me so sad.
Although Heather's parents, I still feel were like the most level-headed about them.
They were.
They really were. And they like pursued like all avenues. Like I really admire how they tried.
Yeah. Even in the second one, they were.
No matter
so
what, honest.
They were very honest, but they also tried to stay positive. You know, they tried to continue to do positive things for the family. You know, they're like, well, this, you know, like my family right now is not supporting this, so we're going to move because hopefully that'll be better for us. You know, like we've explored all avenues, and this is what we think is best. And so, like, they definitely tried to be the most positive.
And I like
everybody else.
I like how they like included Heather, and even though she was like young, they like still tried to include her in the process and stuff, and talk to her through things and like get her opinion, even though like I know like a lot of parents who get cochlear implants like this is what I'm gonna do, this is what we need to do, or like not take the kid into consideration. But they were like very like open and
I thought it was funny when she was talking with her mom and she's like, you said no, and mom's like, no, remember we agreed. And I thought that was funny.
Well, and I thought it was weird that the grandparents kind of went back and forth because they'd be like, well, Heather wants it, it's what she wants, but then they'd be like, but you're the parent, you have to make the decision. It's like you can't use it both ways. You've got to pick a side.
Yeah.
But it was very informative.
In a frustrating sort of way.
That's true.